Breaking news on Martyn Lucas Investor. XRP ETF is now coming. 14 days to go for a potential XRP ETF. I'm going to explain why that's a 14-day countdown now. I'm going to explain how this is happening during a shutdown with the government. I'm going to explain the risks to this because it's not 100% confirmed yet. But if you are an XRP investor, you would want to listen to this video. Remember, so much fake news out there. People calling for XRP ETFs yesterday, the day before, today. People that even in this channel that we try and build the most honest, most real YouTube channel in the world. There's even people in our live chat that says these YouTubers, they're real. They tell us the truth. They don't. They've lied to you over and over and over again, and they were wrong once again with their ETF predictions. We have been spot on with our predictions when it comes to the fundamentals and data. 200 days ago, I came out and told you when these ETFs will come out because we had the 245 deadline from the SEC. I had the whole table. About 50 days ago, everyone else started copying my table and understanding when those deadlines were. The first day of the shutdown, I came out and I told you these ETFs, these deadlines for all these XRP, Solana, ignore them because they no longer apply during a US shutdown, especially if we're still in the US shutdown because there's no one working at the SEC practically. Those deadlines don't matter. All those other YouTubers, all those other X accounts would still continue to give those deadlines and say the XRP ETF's coming out, this date, this date. All those dates have passed, they haven't come out. We were right again. Then we came out and we told you about this new way of filing ETFs during a shutdown, which basically bypasses an SEC formal approval. And that's, in my opinion, the only way these can get approved. There's other YouTubers telling you right now that there should have been an XRP ETF yesterday. Just please, subscribe to this channel. We don't give you the fake news. We research. I spend hours a day putting together these newsletters every morning. So we do our research. Press that like button and let's go into the real information you're probably not going to get anywhere else. Someone said, I'm not going to name any YouTubers' names because I don't want to. They said XRP will be 1,500 to 2,000 by year end. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Just please stop listening to these people. XRP will be lucky, I promise you. This might seem like I'm a bearish XRP holder here, but we will be super lucky to get $10 by the end of year. And by super lucky, I mean, we have been through a lot. We have been holding a while. We have been bullish throughout the SEC case. So XRP is undervalued, but it would still be an amazing return. If we get XRP to $10 by the end of the year, that would be an amazing return because we started at 30 cents last year, ending at $10 will be great. So do not take for granted a $5 XRP, a $10 XRP, even where we are right now, $2.50. We're about 30 cents a year ago. So don't take it for granted. Don't start thinking $1,000 XRP is likely. My next targets and really bullish targets would be $50 to $100 next cycle, maybe in 4 or 5 years. And those are my top predictions. If you go to a stock market investor and tell them about those gains, if you go to a financial advisor and tell them about those gains, they won't believe you and they'll think that's the best investment in the world if you can get that. So please don't take for granted a $10 XRP because everyone is telling you about $1,000 XRP. Again, I'm super bullish on XRP, but I am realistic. Let's come on to today's video, all about XRP, spot ETF countdown, 14 days to a potential breakthrough. Here is the SEC, fast asleep. Well, of course, they're not fast asleep. They are just government shutdown. They're not getting paid. They're not at work. We've got a date, the 13th of November. Put it in your diaries. That is the date we could get the first XRP ETF from Canary Capital. The 20-day countdown is a go. There is Litecoin already there, HBAR there, Solana there. Can XRP be the next there? In my opinion, it should have been before them, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. The race for the first US spot XRP ETF is now formally underway, and the finish line can arrive less than 2 weeks. Canary Funds has filed an updated S1 registration for its XRP ETF, deliberately removing the delaying amendment, a clause that would normally prevent a fund from automatically becoming effective without SEC approval. Remember, we covered this in the newsletter last week about all the rules, what the registration was, how they have to change it. So basically what's happened is with the shutdown came a new rule that the way that you would start filing these ETFs has moved away from the last rule, and it's now on the S1 registration rule. So even before the US shutdown, we came out and told you that the way of filing before is a thing of the past. The SEC is moving to a quicker and faster way of doing it. However, then the SEC went into a shutdown. So we told you this even before the US shutdown. Now that I'm remembering it, it was before the US shutdown. We told you about that rule change where it went from a specific way of filing, which gave you the 245-day deadline, to the S1 way of filing, which just meant that the SEC should be able to approve it quicker. And that's how everyone applied. The S1 registration, and then you wouldn't have a specific deadline. The SEC would just approve it. Then we went into a shutdown. Then there was a rule change because in their Q&A section of the shutdown, the SEC actually put in a specific wording, and I think I can bring this up in a previous newsletter. They put in specific wording. So let me go into our newsletters. Again, if you have the newsletter, you can always go back and check the other ones. So yeah, here we go. This was in this newsletter from a couple of weeks ago. Here, there was a Q&A number 11 in the SEC's shutdown Q&A section, where it said, now that a shutdown is effective, can I file an amendment to my current registration statement to remove the delaying amendment so my registration statement will be effective in 20 days? So the question was, there's always a delaying amendment, and there was, for these ETFs, that the SEC would actually have to come and approve them. But the question someone asked was, can I remove them now because the SEC is not there? And then the SEC said, if the company removes the delaying amendment, they will need to add the new rule 473B, and essentially that means it will come live in 20 days unless the SEC says something. So these will automatically get approved as long as the SEC doesn't disprove it. So that's the new way of filing. And that's how the Solana ETF did it. That's how the HBAR ETF and how the Litecoin ETF did it. So that's what the XRP Canary ETF has now done. So Canary Funds has filed an updated S1 registration. So they had their initial one with the bad wording, or with the wording that they should have used at that time. They've changed the word to remove that delaying amendment, because if you go back into that newsletter, you can see the question was, if I remove the delaying amendment, and they've removed the delaying amendment, a clause that normally prevents the fund from automatically becoming effective without explicit SEC approval. Now, by invoking Section 8A of the Securities Act of 1933, Canary triggered a statutory 20-day countdown. That countdown becomes effective as soon as they refile with the new wording. The only way they can't get approved is if the SEC goes out of their way within that 20-day window to say no. The ETF now becomes legally effective by default, potentially unlocking trading as soon as November the 13th, 2025. We will be tracking this date closely. I don't think anyone else has done it. Again, it takes a while to go through all these filings and understand if they have or not. It looks like it's just Canary, and it looks like this is the first one. I might be wrong. There might be one earlier, one later, but right now this does look like the first one who's done this a few days ago, and it does look like November the 13th would be the first XRP ETF. And this is exactly what Solana, Litecoin, and HBAR Spot ETFs did. And they're leveraging regulatory mechanics during a period of government staff inactivity and potentially paving the way for XRP to join their ranks on public exchanges. So that essentially, this is the SEC's asleep, not at work, and people are sneaking through ETFs. So it's quite interesting. And it's great to have that countdown because we know exactly when that's coming out, and we can base our predictions off it. We can base buy the rumor, sell the news, all of that sort of stuff. So we'll continue to track this, but this is the initial first bit of news I'm bringing to you. We'll keep you updated on this. The closer we get, the more news we get. So make sure you have hit that like button and subscribe. I'm going to tell you some more important things now, but to stay updated with it all, we'll be covering the launch and everything on this channel. So subscribe and hit that like button. Under standard ETF registration procedures, issuers including a delaying amendment in their Form S1 filings. This clause explicitly prevents the registration statement from going effective until the SEC declares it so. So that's the way that they normally filed it. Remember, there was a filing way for 200 days. Then that ended. The SEC said, file it with the S1, and then we'll approve it very quickly. Then the SEC shutdown happened, and then it was like, and then they said keep the S1 filings, but change the wording so it automatically gets approved unless we say something. This is the normal route used for most IPOs and ETF launches, ensuring the SEC staff has time to conduct a full review. However, under Rule 473, under the Securities Act, provides an alternative. If an issuer removes the delaying amendment and replaces it with specific language invoking Section 8A, the S1 registration statement becomes effective automatically 20 days after filing, unless the SEC takes action to stop it. So they have to go out their way to stop it. So you can see, this was the Solana one. They had all of this wording up here. They changed it on October the 7th. It triggered the 20 days, and they changed the wording up there as highlighted. So yeah, earlier in October, both Bitwise and Canary Funds utilized the same mechanics to bring several spot ETFs to market. BSOL, Litecoin, LTCC, Hedera, HBR. Each issuer amended its S1, removed the delaying language, and invoked Section 8A. On schedule, after 20 days, those ETFs became legally effective, allowing trading to begin rapid 8A exchanges approval. So it's worked, it's proven, it should work again with XRP. The 14-day countdown for XRP. So this is where the news broke from Eleanor Terrett, a very credible reporter in crypto. She says Canary Funds has updated its S1 for XRP spot ETF, removing the delaying amendment. This stops registration from that stops registration from going auto effective unless the SEC gives the okay. So they've removed that wording. The SEC doesn't need to give it okay. The only thing they can do is give it the no. This sets Canary's XRP ETF for a launch date of November the 13th, assuming the Nasdaq green light the 8A filing. I apologize, I'm struggling to breathe because I'm for some reason still quite unwell from a couple of weeks ago. Here is the note. The government reopening could affect the timing, potentially moving up if the filing is completed and the SEC is satisfied, or back if the staff propose additional comments. So we are continuing with the shutdown. However, if the shutdown ends, it does throw a spanner in the mix. If the shutdown ends before that specific date, 13th of November, then the SEC can approve it automatically there and then, or they can decide to wait and ask for additional comments. So it might be better, it might be worse. Ideally, I don't know, the shutdown continues and then we get the XRP ETF. Either way, we can't predict if the shutdown will end or not. It doesn't look like it's ending soon, but there will be quite a lot of pain if it doesn't end in the next couple of weeks. So if it does end, what do I think? I think they'll probably comment about something, and then we'll probably have the ETF more likely by the end of the month. But if the shutdown doesn't end, I expect it to go live on the 14th. However, it's worth noting that the SEC chair himself seems to be on board with companies taking advantage of the auto-effective method. This auto-effective method is this 20-day countdown that automatically goes live. Because while not commentating directly on the ETF launches, because this was mainly meant for IPOs and securities, but because ETFs are securities, people have applied to these ETFs. He hasn't commented on the ETF launches, but he did say yesterday he was pleased to see companies like MapLight using the 20-day statutory waiting period to go public during the shutdown, praising the same legal mechanics Bitwise and Canary used to launch their Sol, HBAR, and Litecoin ETF this week. So it doesn't seem like the SEC chair is unhappy about crypto companies using this. Canary XRP ETF now sits precisely on this timeline. We'll go on to the XRP chart as well at the end because it is pumping a little bit today. On October the 24th, prospect for the Canary XRP fund date was updated, and then it changed all its dates. So on October 24th, it changed its filings. The 20-day countdown starts. What else happens? November the 13th is when we expect it to go live, unless the SEC stop it, which will probably, the only way the SEC will stop it is most likely if the shutdown ends and then they want to comment on it. And then even in that scenario, I think we'll be live by the end of November anyway. The final gate is NASDAQ's approval of the fund's 8A listing. Once received, shares can begin trading within days. This makes November the 13th a genuine inflection point for the XRP ETF launch. You can see here, this is the Canary XRP ETF. What's it called? Their filing. You can see now it has changed hereafter, has become effective with the provisions of Section 8A. So they've changed their wording there. And this was on the 24th of October. So that's when the 20-day countdown starts. The Canary XRP ETF is structured as a trust, issuing shares that track the CoinDesk XRP USD CCIX reference rate, an industry standard for XRP price index. It's Canary Capital. The trustees are CSC Delaware Trust Company. The administrator is a US bank. The custodians are Gemini Trust Company and BitGo. The structure mirrors Canary's existing Litecoin and Hedera products, offering daily NAV net asset value calculations. This is Eric, who is a ETF expert from Bloomberg. He did reply something a little bit bearish. I didn't like it. He said, interesting. Although XRP docs didn't have the same comments back and forth with the SEC that Solana had, that's one of the reasons issuers were felt that they were ready. But hey, worth a try, I guess. He's saying that with the Solana ETF, the issuers were talking to the SEC back and forth, and they were very confident. And he says that's why the issuers said went ahead and put that 20-day countdown in. But then he says, well, it's worth a try. So he called the maneuver worth a try, noting that the XRP fund hasn't gone through the same back and forth review with the SEC as Solana did, adding some procedural risk if staff returns with comments. Still, analysts view that the legal pathway as robust and well precedented. The key market question isn't about XRP's fundamentals, but whether the SEC's silence will persist, and what that implies for the future of altcoin ETFs. Many investors see this as the strongest indication yet that regulated mainstream XRP vehicle is within reach. If Canary ETFs proceeds as planned, it will become the first regulated direct spot XRP product in the US markets, making it a profound shift from after years of conflict between the SEC and Ripple Labs. Implications include institutional access to XRP without direct custody risk, new liquidity and tighter spreads from ETF arbitrage, legitimacy boost for non-Bitcoin and non-crypto ETFs, migration of capital towards regulated structures. Critically, this will be significant. This would signify regulatory compliance by default, not formal SEC approval, a subtle but material change in the market's legal landscape. So, what could go wrong? There is still risks. The SEC staff could reopen the review before November the 13th, pausing the 20-day clock. The NASDAQ must finalize the 8A listing approval. Authorized participants need sufficient XRP liquidity to create or redeem shares. Lawmakers could question ETF auto-approval path post-launch. Still, current filings suggest Canary is confident in testing the boundaries of regulatory procedure. The Canary XRP ETF could become the first major crypto fund to reach US markets through regulatory silence, not action. If no SEC intervention occurs by November the 13th, listing can proceed immediately, potentially marking a major market moment. XRP long and center of enforcement battles, debuting in an ETF vehicle just weeks after Solana, Litecoin, and Hedera surprise entries. So do mark your calendars. 13th of November does seem fairly likely, as long as the SEC does stay quiet, doesn't want to comment, and that shutdown continues. Even if the shutdown ends, as long as the SEC doesn't really make it hard for this issuer, it should be going live by then. Worst case scenario, in my opinion, there will be an XRP ETF by November. But the facts we have in front of us, which is always what you should go off, not like other YouTubers, the facts ahead right now looks like 13th of November is when we'll get our XRP ETF. But there is a few things you need to keep in mind. Let's have a quick look at the chart as well. 1 second. Let's go back to our chart of XRP. Remember, we saw the other ETFs go launch. There was a 10, 15, 20%, or maybe the Solana went up 1%, Litecoin went up a few percent, HBAR went up 10%. So I'm not expecting a massive pump, unlike what other YouTubers will say on the launch day. The only way I would expect a massive pump on a launch day, because on an ETF, is if you're in a really euphoric period. If you have Bitcoin on all-time highs, XRP just broke all-time highs, everyone's waiting for any news to buy in, and then an XRP ETF suddenly launches or suddenly goes live, everyone will take that news as a reason to buy, and that because of the sentiment you'll pump. But just because of the ETF, at a time like this when we're sort of in a downtrend for XRP over the last few months, I don't expect it to have a 50, 40, 30% pump on the day. I'm still very bullish about it, because when we come to that high sentiment area, when we come into a peak of a bull market or the euphoric area, or even people buying up XRP in a bear market, it just allows them to buy it in a different way. It allows them to buy it in tax efficient ways. It allows them to buy it in pensions. It allows them to buy it, stock investors to be exposed to it. So it makes it easier for people to buy. So at any period, it's actually good. It's a great step forward. But the only way I expect it to pump on the day is if, or a big pump on the day, is if we are at a euphoric phase. So I do expect the ETF launch could be what propels XRP to new all-time highs over time, as long as the euphoria continues in the markets and we still continue to get good earnings. And then my targets have always stayed the same for this bull market, which is $4.40, $4.70, $5.30, $6.37, $7.41, $8.50, and then I've got my moon bag at $11, $13, $33, which I don't think is very likely of happening. The higher we go, the less likely. But all of these targets I'm fairly confident on, but I'll be taking profits at each of these levels. And this ETF could help get us get to those levels with more money flowing in to XRP. Let me have a quick look at your comments. This is made during a live show, so I just want to answer some of your comments, because if you're watching this as a video, you might have the same comments as some people in the live chat right now. Make sure you have hit the like button. Make sure you have subscribed, because we'll be covering it all live at the time as well. So revved up bike, and that is not a confirmed headline, but we expect it to launch then. Eli says, how do they keep track of XRP, the price of XRP, the better Bitcoin? I don't know what you mean by that. I'm not going to name any YouTubers. Someone says, is the guy who says XRP is 750 by the end of this year? I wouldn't just stop listening to anyone who says that. There's no reason XRP can't be at those prices. ETH did grow fast to 4 digits. There's a big reason why XRP can't be at $1,000, because Ethereum has a much, much lower supply. You can't just look at Ethereum's price and say XRP can get there. Fed rate cut in December, 50% chance. Yeah, at this point there is, I think. Solana went to 3 digits very fast. What's going on? Eli, ET, it's all about market cap. It's not about... Solana has a lower supply than XRP. XRP is at $2.50 because there's 100 billion tokens. Solana's at a much higher price because there's many less tokens than that. Ethereum's at 3,800 because there's less than a billion or whatever. The amount of Ethereum is much, much less than XRP. That's the only reason it's higher. Okay, if you think that person is clever because they're suggesting a $750 XRP and they've lied to you throughout this whole bull market and they've called for ridiculous prices every other day, then you're probably going to lose in this market. Eli, sure, it's possible by the end of this volatile year, so reaching too far. End of next year, very possible. What, $1,000 by end of next year is not possible. He has access to rooms and people's in the know. We've got access to Bank of America. That is what you want access to, not just rats. I don't understand. There's still people defending someone that says XRP is going to hit $1,000 by the end of the year, or $650. Someone that said the XRP ETF will be launching this week. Someone that said XRP will be at $1,000 last year. When will people learn? He has access to people in the know and still makes those crazy predictions. Yeah. It just shows you who are those people. I'm sure he does. He knows nothing, or maybe he does and he says it anyway. All he has to do is convince people he knows. He doesn't know. He doesn't have to be right. He has to be a clickbaiter. Yeah, they're all clickbait. We want to give you the real news. And if I use clickbait, like probably when this video goes out, I'm probably going to say XRP ETF on the verge of launch, or XRP ETF in 14 days time. That's as far as I'll go, and it's pretty accurate. Yes, in the video, I'm going to tell you the risks of that and why that could not happen. But the main point of the video is me saying XRP ETF for 14 days. I'm not going to come out and say $1,000 XRP or this ETF is going to launch it to $50 next week, or this ETF is 100% confirmed. I mean, there's a fine line between having a thumbnail and a title to get people to click and delivering on it, and just having a thumbnail and a title and then just pure fake news within it. I should wrap up this video, but I'm listening to this. Yeah, if his predictions if his predictions are correct, which they haven't been already, but let's say XRP goes to $750 by the end of the year. Obviously, at first, they'll be very, very happy. That's why people watch these videos, because they get very excited because they see that they've got 100 XRP, and if it's $1,000, then they'll be millionaires and they'll never have to work again. That's not the attitude you should go in with. But anyway, if that does happen, firstly, I'll be very happy, and secondly, I'll do a formal apology video to all those YouTubers. I took a screenshot of that exchange between $14 would do for me. Yeah, it'll be amazing if we get $14. It's still very unlikely. Sensei, there is no market cap relevance. There is. I know what you mean over time, if it's like, but right now it's not being used for all cross-border payments around the world. So that's not the way you can. You don't just throw away market cap for now. XRP at $27 is my end target, but I'm ready for lower targets. If we get 27 this cycle, I do see $150 in 5 years. If we hit $10, then my 5-year target will be much less, like $50. Yeah, revved up biker. I like it, but very bullish, but very doable as well. And you've said if we only hit $10 this cycle, then your next target will be $50. So that's in line with me. If we hit $10, I think $50 to $100 next cycle. If we hit $27 this cycle, then then yes, maybe we get $150 next cycle. I'm spot on. Please hit the like button and give out free memberships. You're making some valid points. I stand corrected, sir. No worries, Mike. Okay, so thank you everyone for tuning into this video. We're going to continue with the live stream. We're live every single trading day. We're going to have the newsletter here, so go check all the real facts. You get it daily into your inbox. You don't need to listen to people that give you fake news. 2 videos up here as well. But until next time, I apologize for I'm not feeling very well, so that's why I keep pausing when I'm reading. But until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye.